Hello and welcome. You stand at the edge of understanding something most would rather forget. The mistress of the night reaches into countless minds each moment, her cold fingers brushing away memories like dust from ancient stone. She does not simply hide in shadows. She is the shadow that consumes light, the silence after the scream, the emptiness where joy once lived. And tonight, you will understand why she must erase what mortals cherish most. Before the world knew shape, before the first dawn painted the sky, before even the gods walked among creation, there existed only void. Not the comforting darkness of a moonless night, but something far more profound, an absence so complete that even nothingness had no meaning. Within this primordial emptiness, two forces emerged from the very essence of the universe itself, not created by any hand, but coalescing from the raw material of existence, like crystals forming in saturated water. You might call them sisters now, Shar and Selune, the dark and the light. They were born as twins from the primordial essence of the world and heavens, two goddesses so perfectly opposite, yet so profoundly connected that they saw themselves as one being. Later myths would call them the two-faced goddess, or the sisters who were one. Raven-haired and silver-haired, darkness and light made manifest. They complemented each other and together brought order from chaos, though this cooperation would prove tragically brief. Shar would never forgive what came next. The stories told by priests and scholars describe how the twin goddesses shaped creation together. They formed the heavenly bodies of the crystal sphere, the planets and moons, and countless stars that would light the void. Together, their combined powers infused these worlds with life, giving birth to Chantia, the Earth Mother, who would nurture all living things. For a time, this suggests a harmony between the sisters, a shared purpose in creation itself. But when Selune reached into the plane of fire and pulled forth the pure flame to ignite the largest heavenly body as a sun, everything changed. She brought warmth and light to the cold darkness, creating the conditions necessary for life to truly flourish on the worlds they had made. This act meant as a gift to their creation, Shar perceived as betrayal. The primordial darkness that had given birth to both goddesses was now disrupted, replaced with blazing light and oppressive order. The first war between goddesses began, not over territory or worship or any mortal concern, but over the fundamental nature of existence itself. Should the universe remain in comfortable darkness, or should it burn with light and life? Shar redoubled her efforts against her twin, working to snuff out all light and heat throughout the crystal sphere. She fought to preserve what she believed was the natural state of all things: the void, the silence, the peace of absolute nothingness. Selune, desperate and weakened by her sister's relentless assault, made a choice that would reshape reality forever. She tore the divine essence of magic from her own body and hurled it at her sister in defense of the life they had created. This magical essence ripped through Shar, pulling an equal portion of magical energy from the dark goddess, and reformed behind her as a new deity entirely. Mistral, the first goddess of magic, born from both light and darkness, from both creation and destruction, the embodiment of raw magical power that would later be known as the Weave. This moment transformed the conflict from a battle between two sisters into something far more complex. The war had created new life, new possibility, new forces beyond the twins' direct control. And in that creation through conflict, perhaps we see the pattern that would define reality itself. Light and dark locked in eternal struggle, neither able to completely triumph, and from their battle, everything else emerges. Shar's defeat in this primordial war was not absolute, though it appeared so at first. Selune's light spread across creation. Life flourished on countless worlds. Mortals eventually arose, thinking and feeling beings who would build civilizations and seek meaning in the chaos. The universe that you inhabit now owes its existence to Selune's victory and Shar's failure to prevent it. But Shar understood something her sister perhaps did not. Every act of creation contained within it the seeds of its own undoing. Every beginning guaranteed an ending. Every life carried death in its very bones. Every memory would eventually fade. Every hope would be tested against reality's indifferent cruelty. The victory Selune celebrated was only temporary, because loss is the inevitable conclusion of all existence. Shar retreated into the spaces Selune could not illuminate. She wove herself into the fabric of night, into the shadows cast by every light, into the forgotten corners of memory, where painful truths hide from conscious thought. She became the goddess not just of darkness, but of all the ways darkness manifests: forgetfulness, secrets, loss, the void between stars, the silence after death, the numbness that protects wounded minds from unbearable pain. Where Selune claimed portfolios of light, moon, stars, navigation, and wanderers, Shar claimed darkness, night, loss, forgetfulness, and secrets. She watched as Selune's creation unfolded across ages. She watched mortals build and destroy, love and hate, hope and despair. And with each cycle, Shar's understanding deepened. She learned that mortals, despite being children of Selune's light, possessed within them a hunger for her darkness, a need for it. The very nature of consciousness, it seemed, generated suffering that eventually drove thinking beings to seek the relief only oblivion could provide. You see, mortal minds were never designed to carry the full weight of existence. Your memories accumulate like stones in a sack, each one adding to the burden until the weight becomes unbearable. Your losses compound across years until grief becomes as familiar as breathing. Your hopes rise and shatter repeatedly until the very act of hoping feels like volunteering for torture. Based on what we can observe of Shar's philosophy and the testimonies of her followers, She recognized this fundamental flaw in conscious existence. She saw that awareness itself was a curse, and memory extended that curse backward through time. Shar offers relief from this burden, but the price is steep. She demands that you embrace loss completely, not just accept it, but worship it. Not just endure suffering, but recognize it as the truest expression of reality. She asks you to look unflinchingly at the core truth of existence. Everything you love will be taken from you. Everyone you cherish will die or betray you, or simply drift away. Every achievement will be forgotten. Every monument will crumble. Every name will be lost to time. This could imply that Shar sees herself not as a villain imposing cruelty, but as a teacher revealing what others prefer to deny. And then she offers you the gift of forgetting. Her clergy speak of sacred rituals designed to ease this burden. The most important ritual in Sharon faith is nightfall, the coming of darkness, held every single night without fail. It consists of a brief invocation, a dance, inspiring instructions from the goddess herself, spoken through one of the clergy or a raven-haired female lay worshipper, and a revel celebrated by eating, drinking, and dancing together. This daily ritual reinforces the central truth of Shar's faith. That darkness always returns. That night always follows day. That loss is the one constant in an ever-changing universe. On moonless nights, nightfall becomes the coming of the lady, a more significant ceremony where entire congregations must carry out some act of vengeance or wickedness in the dark goddess's name. The most important ceremony of the Sharon priesthood is the kiss of the lady, a horrific night-long revel of slaying and performing dark deeds that ends with a feast at dawn. These rituals, disturbing as they may sound, serve a purpose within Shar's theology. They break down the moral constraints that keep mortals bound to societies that cause them pain. They offer release through transgression, freedom through abandonment of the rules that govern ordinary life. Through these rituals, supplicants can surrender their most painful memories to Shar's keeping. The death of a child, the betrayal of a lover, the failure that defines them. They kneel in darkness and pray for the Lady of Loss to take these burdens from them. And Shar, in what her followers describe as terrible mercy, complies. The exact mechanism of this memory erasure is not fully documented in scholarly texts, but based on accounts from former Sharons and those who have witnessed the ceremonies, it appears to be genuinely effective. The supplicants emerge changed, emptier, unburdened in ways that make them both more peaceful and less human. But she does not simply erase pain. This is crucial to understanding why Shar's gift is both mercy and horror. She cannot extract a painful memory without removing the context that gives that memory its emotional weight. She takes the memory of the child, yes, but also the memory of holding that child, of hearing their first laugh, of seeing yourself reflected in their eyes. She removes the betrayal, but also the love that made betrayal possible. She lifts the failure, but also the ambition that gave failure its sting. Memory, it seems, is not made of discrete moments, but of interconnected webs of experience. Pull one thread and others come with it. Her followers emerge from these rituals lighter, emptier, free from suffering in the way a corpse is free from suffering. They walk through the world unburdened by attachment because Shar has severed the threads that connected them to life's joys and sorrows alike. They become vessels for her darkness, servants perfectly suited to spread her gospel of loss. Her most devoted followers, the Nightcloaks, represent the ultimate expression of this transformation. These are clerics who have multi-classed as rogues, combining divine power with skills of stealth, deception, and assassination. They are debased and accomplished servants who have surrendered so much of themselves that only service to Shar remains. Some call this cruelty. Shar would call it honesty. The mistress of the night does not lie to her followers. She does not promise them paradise after death or reward for virtue. She does not tell them that their suffering has purpose or that justice will eventually prevail. She offers them the one thing most gods cannot provide: an end to hope. Based on the core tenets of her faith as recorded in religious texts, hope itself is viewed as the cruelest torture. Hope keeps you reaching for happiness that will never arrive. Hope makes you believe that tomorrow might be better, forcing you to endure today. Hope whispers lies about meaning and purpose and the fundamental goodness of existence. To erase hope is to free the mind from its most persistent tormentor. You might ask why anyone would choose this, why anyone would voluntarily surrender their memories, their hopes, their very capacity for joy. But you already know the answer. You have felt it in your darkest moments, the desire to simply stop feeling. The wish to wake up one morning and discover that the weight crushing your chest has vanished. The fantasy of forgetting everything that hurts and starting fresh, blank, untouched by the past. Shar makes that fantasy real. At a price most would consider too high, yes. But to those drowning in grief, no price seems too steep. The goddess herself dwells in a realm beyond mortal comprehension. Originally, she inhabited the plane of shadow in a tower with no obvious entrances called the Tower of Loss. She would trap those who valued their freedom inside, savoring their despair at being unable to escape. Though she allowed petitioners and visiting worshippers to freely come and go, perhaps to further torture those imprisoned. Later, she abandoned this tower and created her own realm in the astral sea, influenced by the negative energy plane. She called it the Shadowfell, larger than any other divine realm there. Among the dark scenery, with its black sand and shadowy natural features, rose the Towers of Night. Multiple towers rather than one, a domain where darkness has substance and form, where shadows cast their own shadows, and where light exists only as a memory of something lost. She rules from these towers, and from there she watches the mortal world. Her gaze falls upon every act of loss, every forgotten name, every abandoned dream, every relationship that withers into indifference, every civilization's collapse, every species' extinction, every star's death. She sees it all, and we can infer from her continued opposition to creation, recognizes it as proof of her philosophy. Selûne created, Shar destroys, but destruction is merely creation's inevitable conclusion. The twin goddesses remain locked in their eternal struggle. Selûne's light spreads across the world in the form of hope, love, new beginnings, the endless optimism that tomorrow might bring something better. Shar's darkness follows behind, patient and inevitable, reminding mortals that all light eventually fails, all warmth eventually cools, all life eventually ends. Their war has been waged since before all other Faerunian gods existed, before time itself was recorded. It is the oldest conflict in this cosmos, and it shows no signs of ending. Their war plays out on cosmic battlefields and in individual human hearts. Every person who chooses to hope despite evidence to the contrary serves Selûne. Every person who surrenders to despair, who embraces loss, who finds comfort in forgetting, serves Shar. Most mortals, if they are honest, serve both goddesses at different times. You hope until hope becomes unbearable. Then you seek the numbness of forgetfulness. You emerge from that numbness eventually and hope again. The cycle continues, and in that continuing cycle, we might understand why neither goddess can ever claim final victory. But Shar's most devoted followers break that cycle. They choose permanent darkness over the exhausting alternation of light and shadow. They become night cloaks and members of monastic orders like the Dark Moon monks and Shadowhand monks, who combine different magical and martial abilities in service to the Lady of Loss. They learn to see in absolute darkness, not with eyes, but with the acceptance that light was always an illusion. They master secrets and shadows. They become living extensions of their goddess's will. And their mission is simple: spread loss, erase memory, destroy hope wherever it takes root. Oppose the faith of Selûne at every opportunity, for the moon goddess represents everything Shar seeks to unmake. Now you begin to understand why Shar erases memories, not out of cruelty for cruelty's sake, but because she believes, perhaps correctly, that memory is the source of all suffering. To remember joy is to mourn its passing. To remember love is to fear its loss. To remember achievement is to dread failure. To remember anything good is to guarantee future pain when that good thing inevitably ends. This philosophy, dark as it is, contains a kernel of truth that makes it seductive to those who have suffered greatly. Better to forget, better to exist in an eternal present, unburdened by past or future. Better to float in darkness like a child in the womb, unaware of the harsh world waiting outside. This is Shar's gift. This is her mercy. This is why mortals turn to her despite knowing the price. Because sometimes the pain of remembering becomes greater than the fear of forgetting. Section 2. The Shadow Weave and Shar's Divine Power. The weave came into existence through Mistral, the goddess of magic born from the conflict between Shar and Selune. When Selune tore divine magical essence from her own body and hurled it at her sister, that essence ripped through Shar and coalesced as Mistral, carrying magical energy from both goddesses. This new deity took upon herself the task of organizing the raw, chaotic magical forces that permeated existence after creation, weaving them into something mortals could access and use without destroying themselves in the process. You must understand what the weave truly is to comprehend Shar's response to it. The weave is not simply a tool for casting spells or performing magical feats. It is the underlying structure through which magic flows in reality itself. Every spell, every magical effect, every moment when a mortal channels arcane or divine power, that energy travels through the weave. When a wizard speaks words of power and gestures in precise patterns, they are pulling on threads that Mistral, and later her successor Mistra, maintains. When a sorcerer channels magic through their bloodline, they tap into connections the weave provides. When a cleric calls upon divine power, that power often travels along pathways the weave maintains. Mistral wove this cosmic net with infinite patience and precision. She took the chaotic magical energies that permeated existence and organized them into something mortals could access, control, and understand. She created laws governing how magic could flow, what forms it could take, how much power a mortal mind could safely channel. She built safeguards to prevent catastrophic failures. She established the fundamental rules that every spellcaster, knowingly or not, must follow when working with arcane magic. The weave became the foundation of magical civilization. Cities rose because wizards could shape stone and summon water. Kingdoms prospered because magic healed the sick and blessed the harvests. Knowledge spread because spells carried messages across vast distances. The weave made possible everything mortals consider progress through magic. It turned magical energy from a dangerous, unpredictable force into a reliable tool for building and maintaining society. Shar watched this development with what we can infer was growing fury, though the exact timeline of her response is not precisely documented in surviving texts. To her, the weave likely represented everything she opposed: order imposed on chaos, structure built where formlessness should reign, light cast into spaces that belonged to darkness. Mistral had taken raw magical potential and civilized it, domesticated it, turned it into another servant of creation rather than an agent of the void Shar cherished. But Shar recognized something crucial about the weave structure. No matter how comprehensive Mistral made her creation, it could not cover everything, could not be everywhere at once, could not illuminate every shadow. Where light casts its brightest glow, the deepest shadows form. Where the weave stretched its threads most densely, gaps inevitably appeared. Small spaces at first, tiny holes in the cosmic net, places where magical energy flowed differently or struggled to flow at all. These gaps existed not necessarily as flaws in Mistral's design, but as necessary consequences of any structure. You cannot weave a net without leaving spaces between the threads. Shar found these spaces, and into them she wove her own design. The shadow weave took shape as Shar's answer to the regular weave, an alternative framework for channeling magical energy that reflected her philosophy as perfectly as Mistral's weave reflected the principles of creation. Where the weave brought order and predictability, the shadow weave offered controlled unpredictability. Where the weave created connections between caster and effect, the shadow weave worked through separation and absence. Where the weave built magical structure, the shadow weave eroded and undermined. The relationship between the two magical structures was paradoxical and unstable. The shadow weave could not exist independently of the regular weave. It relied on the weave structure to define the spaces it occupied, drawing power from the gaps and weaknesses in Mistral's creation. Like darkness requires light to cast shadows, the shadow weave required the weave to exist at all. Without the weave, the shadow weave would collapse entirely. This dependency meant that Shar could never fully destroy what Mistral had created without destroying her own alternative in the process. Yet the shadow weave also weakened the regular weave by existing. It created disruptions in magical flow, introduced uncertainties where Mistral had established certainty, and provided an alternative path for magical energy that bypassed the safeguards the goddess of magic had carefully constructed. Based on what we know of magical theory in Faerun, this suggests the two structures existed in constant tension, each one necessary for defining the other, neither able to eliminate its opposite. Mortals who discovered the shadow weave found it offered power unlike anything the regular weave provided. Shadow magic felt fundamentally different from ordinary spellcasting, where regular magic flowed smoothly through established channels. Shadow magic rippled and twisted through the gaps between those channels. Where normal spells blazed with visible energy, shadow spells whispered with potential hidden in darkness. Where traditional wizards shaped reality through will and knowledge applied to the weave structure, shadow mages worked by finding where that structure was weakest and exploiting those weaknesses. The price for this power was steep, and this appears consistent across accounts from multiple sources. Just as Shar demanded memory and hope from her worshippers, the shadow weave demanded similar sacrifices from its users. Those who channeled shadow magic found their memories becoming unreliable over time. Important moments from their past would blur or vanish entirely. Faces of loved ones became harder to recall with clarity. The details of their own histories slipped away like water through cupped hands, and no amount of effort could hold them in place. They also found themselves changing in other ways. Emotions dulled gradually. Joy became muted. Love lost its intensity. But so did pain. So did fear. So did the crushing weight of existence that drove so many mortals to desperation. Shadow mages walked through the world wrapped in a comfortable numbness, protected from the worst of life's cruelties by the very magic they wielded. Many considered this a fair trade, especially those who had initially sought shadow magic as escape from unbearable suffering. The mechanics of shadow magic differed fundamentally from regular spellcasting. A traditional wizard studying fireball would learn precise formulas, specific gestures, exact incantations. They would understand the spell as a structured process, gather magical energy from the weave, shape it through will and word into the desired form, release it toward the target. Every step predictable, repeatable, reliable when performed correctly. A shadow mage approaching the same destructive goal would take a different path entirely. Though the exact methods are not fully documented in most magical texts for obvious reasons, based on fragmentary accounts and observations of shadow magic in action, they appear to work not by gathering energy, but by creating absence. Not by shaping power, but by hollowing out space. Their destructive spells would not conjure flames from magical force, but rather create sudden voids that reality rushed to fill with heat and destruction. The result might look similar to an outside observer, but the underlying process was inverted. Creation through destruction, power through absence, effect through the removal of what prevented that effect. This inversion extended to every school of magic touched by the shadow weave. Illusion magic through the regular weave created false images by manipulating light and perception, adding things that were not there. Shadow illusions we can infer from descriptions of their effects, worked by erasing true images or obscuring them, leaving only what the caster wanted seen. They removed rather than added. Divination through the weave revealed hidden knowledge by connecting the caster's mind to distant places or times. Shadow divination appeared to work by erasing the barriers between known and unknown, by making secrets forget they were meant to stay hidden, by removing the obstacles that normally prevented information from flowing freely. Enchantment magic became particularly powerful when channeled through the shadow weave. Shar's domain over forgetfulness and secrets made her framework ideal for spells that altered minds, erased memories, or implanted false thoughts where true memories had been removed. A shadow enchanter could make you forget a person's name or face with relative ease, could erase entire relationships from your memory, leaving only vague unease where love or friendship once resided, could steal decades of your past and leave you wondering why you felt so empty inside, unable to identify what was missing. Some of the most feared agents in Faerun's history were shadow enchanters, serving Shar directly. They walked through kingdoms, leaving trails of carefully targeted amnesia in their wake. Political enemies would wake up forgetting why they opposed each other, their righteous anger dissolved by the removal of whatever memories had sparked it. Witnesses to crimes would lose the memories that could condemn the guilty, ensuring justice could never be served. Entire conspiracies could vanish from collective memory. When these enchanters decided the knowledge they represented was too dangerous to persist, the shadow weave grew stronger with each user, each spell cast, each mortal who turned away from Mistral's structure toward Shar's alternative. It spread like roots through the foundations of reality, finding new gaps, creating new spaces where Shar's darkness could take hold and expand. By the time the other gods realized what she had accomplished, it was too late to undo without catastrophic consequences. The shadow weave had become part of the cosmic order, an established fact of existence that could not be removed without unraveling much of what held reality together. Mistral, and later her successors who inherited the name Mistra after the original goddess's death and rebirth, found themselves in an uncomfortable position. They could not destroy the shadow weave without destabilizing their own weave. The two structures had become entangled in ways that made separation impossible. Attempts to eliminate shadow magic entirely would cause catastrophic failures in regular magic, potentially unraveling the careful structure that made safe spellcasting possible. The goddess of magic and the goddess of loss had become locked in a delicate balance, neither able to eliminate the other without destroying themselves in the process. This balance suited Shar perfectly, or so it appears from her continued maintenance of the shadow weave. She did not need to defeat Mistra directly in open conflict. She only needed to persist, to endure, to remain a constant alternative to the light. Every mage who chose shadow over regular magic represented a small victory. Every spell that eroded rather than created proved her philosophical point. Every moment the shadow weave continued to exist demonstrated that darkness could not be banished, only temporarily held at bay. The philosophy behind shadow magic aligned perfectly with Shar's teachings as recorded by her clergy. Regular magic was about imposing will on reality, bending the universe to match your desires through force of knowledge and power. Shadow magic was about accepting reality's fundamental emptiness and working with that emptiness rather than against it. Regular magic assumed the universe could be shaped, improved, controlled through sufficient understanding and effort. Shadow magic recognized that all shapes eventually dissolve, all improvements eventually decay, all control eventually fails, and worked from that recognition rather than fighting against it. A shadow mage understood that every spell they cast was temporary. Every effect would fade. Every change would be undone eventually. This understanding, rather than discouraging them, gave them a strange kind of peace that practitioners often reported. They did not rage against impermanence. They embraced it. They wove their magic from acceptance of loss rather than desperate attempts to prevent it. This philosophical alignment made shadow mages particularly effective against traditional spellcasters in magical combat, as numerous historical accounts attest. The shadow weave became Shar's greatest tool for spreading her influence beyond her direct worship. It required no prayer, no conscious decision to serve the dark goddess, no theological commitment. Any mage curious about alternative sources of power might accidentally tap into it during their experiments. Any spellcaster frustrated with the limitations of regular magic might seek it out as a solution, and once found, once used, the shadow weave began its subtle work on the user's mind and soul, gradually eroding the things that made them care about the world and their place in it. The shadow weave stood as proof that Shar's vision was viable, that darkness could create as well as destroy. That loss could build structures as well as tear them down. In weaving her alternative to Mistral's creation, Shar demonstrated that she was not simply the opposite of light, but rather a different kind of order entirely, a different answer to the fundamental questions about how magic, and by extension reality itself, should function in a universe where suffering seemed as fundamental as existence. Section 3. The Dogma of Loss and Why Shar Erases Memory. The black disk hangs in every temple dedicated to Shar. A perfect circle of absolute darkness bordered by deep purple, like the last moment of twilight before true night descends. Her followers gaze upon this symbol and see not emptiness, but completion. The disk represents everything Shar teaches, the void that existed before creation, the darkness that waits at the end of all things, the empty space where memory goes when Shar claims it for her own. Understanding why Shar erases memory requires understanding her fundamental theology. Other gods promise rewards for virtue, punishment for wickedness, meaning sewn into the fabric of existence. Shar promises nothing except what her clergy describe as truth, and her truth cuts deeper than any blade. Life is suffering. Memory extends that suffering across time. Hope multiplies it by suggesting relief might come. The only escape, according to Sharon doctrine, lies in embracing the void, in surrendering everything you are and everything you remember to the Lady of Loss. Her clergy teach this doctrine in whispers and shadows, in hidden sanctuaries where light never reaches. They do not proselytize openly like priests of other faiths. They do not stand in marketplaces preaching conversion. Instead, they wait and watch. They identify the moments when mortals break, when grief becomes unbearable, when betrayal cuts so deep that trust itself dies, when failure crushes dreams so completely that hope seems like a cruel joke. In those moments of absolute despair, Shar's servants often appear, drawn to suffering like moths to flame. They speak softly to the broken. They do not judge or dismiss the pain. They validate it completely. They agree that life has been cruel, that hope is exhausting, that memory weighs too much to carry. They speak about relief, about peace, about the simple comfort of forgetting. They describe their goddess's gifts not as sacrifice, but as liberation, not as loss, but as freedom from the chains of painful remembrance. The core tenets of Shar's faith are recorded in various religious texts, and they paint a clear picture of her philosophy. Her dogma teaches that life is but torment and pain, that only in death is there succor and release. All creatures must realize this truth or perish in foolishness. The self is the enemy of all things, and weakness is a sin. Based on these principles, we can understand that Shar views individual identity as a trap, memory as the mechanism that creates and maintains that trap, and hope as the lie that keeps mortals imprisoned within it. Reveal secrets only to fellow members of the faithful, her doctrine commands. Never follow hope or turn to the light. The tenets teach that pain and despair are the only constants in life, and the dark goddess's embrace is the only true solace from them. This suggests that for Sharons, secrecy is not merely practical, but theological. To keep secrets is to hold darkness close, to maintain the separation between those who understand Shar's truth and those who still cling to illusions of meaning and purpose. The most important ritual in Sharon faith is nightfall, the coming of darkness, held every single night without fail. This daily observance consists of a brief invocation, a dance, inspiring instructions from the goddess herself, spoken through one of the clergy or a raven-haired female lay worshipper, and a revel celebrated by eating, drinking, and dancing together. The regularity of this ritual reinforces Shar's central message. Darkness always returns. Night always follows day. Loss is the one constant in an ever-changing universe, and rather than fighting this truth, her followers celebrate it. On moonless nights, when Selune's light is completely absent from the sky, nightfall becomes the coming of the lady, a more significant ceremony where entire congregations must carry out some act of vengeance or wickedness in the dark goddess's name. The exact nature of these acts varies, but historical accounts suggest they often involve undermining the works of Selune's faithful, spreading despair in hopeful communities, or removing obstacles to Shar's influence through various means. This could imply that Shar's faith is not merely passive acceptance of darkness, but active opposition to light wherever it appears. The most important ceremony of the Sharon priesthood is the Kiss of the Lady, a horrific night-long revel of slaying and performing dark deeds that ends with a feast at dawn. The details of this ritual are closely guarded secrets, known only to initiated clergy, but based on accounts from those who have escaped the faith or witnessed its aftermath. It appears to involve systematic destruction of hope in targeted communities, assassination of those who oppose Shar's influence, and rituals designed to spread her darkness more effectively. The feast at dawn suggests a celebration of having survived the night, of having carried out the goddess's will while the world slept in ignorance. Beyond these established rituals, Sharon clergy perform individualized ceremonies for supplicants seeking relief from painful memories. While specific procedures are not fully documented in accessible texts for obvious reasons, accounts from former Sharons and observers describe rituals conducted in absolute darkness, often underground or in windowless chambers. Incense burns, filling the air with bitter smoke that clouds thought and loosens the grip of consciousness. The supplicant speaks their pain aloud, describing in excruciating detail the memory they wish to lose. The priests listen in silence, bearing witness to suffering without offering the meaningless comfort other faiths provide. When the confession ends, when the supplicant has nothing left to say, the priests begin their prayers to Shar. They do not ask her to ease the pain or make sense of senseless tragedy. They pray for erasure, for the memory to be taken completely, for the wound to close not through healing, but through removal of everything that made the wound possible. Based on multiple accounts, Shar answers these prayers through her divine power. The exact mechanism remains mysterious, as with most divine interventions, but the effects are documented. The painful recollection begins to dissolve. Details fade first. The color of a dead child's eyes, the sound of a betrayer's voice, the specific words spoken during a traumatic moment. Then larger pieces vanish. Faces become indistinct. Entire relationships grow hazy. The identities of those who caused pain slip away completely. But here is where Shar's mercy reveals its terrible nature. She cannot erase the pain without erasing the context that gives pain its shape and meaning. Memory does not exist in isolated fragments, but in interconnected webs of experience. The joy of holding your child connects inextricably to the agony of losing them. The ecstasy of being loved ties fundamentally to the devastation of rejection. The pride in your work binds inseparably to the shame of its destruction. Pull one thread and others come with it, whether you wish them to or not. So Shar takes it all. The good memories with the bad, the love with the loss, the hope with the heartbreak. She hollows you out, leaving only the present moment, only the immediate sensation of existing without the weight of accumulated experience. You emerge from these rituals lighter in every sense, unburdened, emptied, free from the past, and therefore free from the pain the past contains. Her priests describe this as mercy and liberation. Her detractors, particularly among Selune's faithful, call it spiritual annihilation. Both perspectives hold validity depending on one's philosophical framework. The theology behind this practice runs deeper than simple pain relief. Shar teaches, through her clergy's recorded doctrine, that identity itself is a prison. Your sense of self comes from accumulated memories, from the story you tell yourself about who you are based on what you have experienced. You are the sum of your relationships, your successes and failures, your joys and sorrows. This identity shapes how you think, what you want, who you believe yourself to be, and because identity is built from memory, it traps you in patterns established by your past. The person whose child died becomes defined by that loss. Every future interaction carries that weight. Every moment of potential happiness is shadowed by remembrance of grief. They cannot move forward because their identity is anchored to that terrible moment. They are the parent of a dead child, and that fact becomes the core of who they are, coloring everything else they experience. Shar offers liberation from this trap through erasure. By removing the memory, she removes that aspect of identity. You can no longer be defined by a loss you do not remember experiencing. The grief that shaped you evaporates. You become undefined, open, ready to exist without the constraints of who you used to be. This philosophy, disturbing as it may sound, holds a certain logical consistency that makes it attractive to those suffering from identity-defining trauma. The Nightcloaks, Shar's most devoted servants, embody this philosophy completely. These are multi-class clerics and rogues who combine divine power with skills of stealth, deception, and assassination. Many have undergone memory-erasing rituals dozens or hundreds of times over their years of service. They have surrendered so much of their past that they barely remember who they were before serving the Lady of Loss. They know their skills and training, their abilities and knowledge, but the emotional context has been systematically stripped away. These servants move through the world like living shadows, present, but not truly engaged with life in any meaningful sense. They complete their missions with perfect efficiency because nothing distracts them, no lingering doubt born from past mistakes, no second thoughts rooted in memory of previous failures, no hesitation caused by emotional attachment to outcomes. They are Shar's will made flesh, darkness given purpose, void with direction toward spreading her influence. The process of becoming a Nightcloak involves systematic erasure of self over time. Initiates begin by surrendering their most painful memories, just as any supplicant might. But they do not stop there. They return to the altars again and again, offering up more of their past with each visit. Joyful memories next. The first time they fell in love, the day they achieved something they thought impossible, the moment they discovered a truth that changed their worldview. All of it goes into Shar's keeping, piece by piece, until little remains of the person they once were. With each ritual, they become less attached to the material world, less invested in outcomes beyond their assigned missions, less concerned with survival or success, or any of the things that drive ordinary mortals. They shed their humanity layer by layer until only service remains, only the mission, only the dark goddess and her while directing their increasingly hollow existence. Some initiates cannot complete this transformation. They cling too tightly to some memory, some relationship, some aspect of identity. They refuse to surrender despite pressure to do so. These individuals are not typically punished for their failure, as Shar's faith has no need for forced conversion. Those who cannot fully embrace loss simply remain at lower ranks within the hierarchy, useful, but never truly transformed into the hollowed vessels that night cloaks represent. They serve as ordinary priests, conducting rituals and maintaining temples. But they will never achieve the ultimate union with darkness that comes from complete self-erasure. The theology teaches that this hollowing is not diminishment, but ascension. By removing everything that makes you an individual, you become closer to Shar herself, who existed before individuality had meaning. You become darkness without form, void without feature, pure potential unbound by the limits of personality or memory. You achieve a state beyond suffering because you have no self left to suffer, no identity that can be threatened or diminished or lost. Critics of this doctrine, particularly among the faiths of Selune and other gods associated with life and growth, point out what they consider obvious horror. A person without memory is barely a person at all by most definitions. They have no continuity of experience, no sense of growth or change over time, no ability to learn from mistakes or build on successes in any meaningful way. They exist in an eternal present that resembles death more than life, more like animated corpses than truly living beings. Shar's priests acknowledge this criticism and, based on their recorded responses, embrace it. Yes, they say, it is a kind of death. Death of the ego. Death of the illusion that you are something permanent, something that matters in the cosmic scale, something that will endure beyond your brief existence. But this death leads to rebirth into truth, into acceptance of what you always were from the universe's perspective. Temporary, forgettable, insignificant in the vast darkness of cosmic time. And in accepting this truth, in surrendering to it completely, you find the only peace that truly exists. This message resonates with certain types of people across all cultures and time periods. Those who have lost too much to keep going. Those who have been betrayed so thoroughly that trust seems impossible. Those who have tried every other solution and found no relief from their suffering. They come to Shar's hidden temples not because they want to serve darkness for its own sake, but because they want to stop hurting. And if the price of peace is their own dissolution, many consider it worth paying. Why does Shar do this? Why does she demand memory's surrender? Why does she work tirelessly through her clergy to erase hope and attachment, and all the things that make mortal life bearable for those not yet broken? Her priests offer explanations based on her revealed doctrine. Some emphasize mercy, arguing that she genuinely seeks to spare mortals from suffering that would otherwise be unbearable. Others stress cosmic necessity, claiming that memory and hope are aberrations that distort reality's true nature, which is emptiness and loss. Still, others suggest she seeks to prove her point against Selûne, demonstrating through each conversion that existence without light is not just possible, but preferable for those who have tasted suffering deeply enough. The truth likely encompasses all these motivations, and more that mortal minds cannot fully grasp. Shar is ancient beyond mortal comprehension, her reasoning shaped by eons of conflict and observation. She has watched countless civilizations rise and fall across multiple worlds. She has seen mortals repeat the same patterns of hope and despair across millennia. She has witnessed how love leads inevitably to loss, how every attempt to find permanent meaning ends in recognition of impermanence. From this vast perspective, erasure of memory could genuinely be considered an act of compassion. She sees mortals carrying unbearable weights, grinding themselves down under accumulating trauma, breaking under the pressure of too much remembered pain. And she offers relief, the only relief that actually works according to her philosophy. Not therapy that helps you process trauma while keeping it present. Not time that supposedly heals wounds, but really just teaches you to live with constant pain. Not relationships that create new vulnerabilities even as they address old ones. She offers complete removal of the problem at its source. Memory is the problem. Hope is the problem. Attachment is the problem. Remove these things and suffering ends, not through achievement of some positive state of happiness, but through absence of the conditions that generate suffering in the first place. This is Shar's gift, as her clergy understand it. This is what she offers to those wise enough or desperate enough to accept it. The paradox, recognized by scholars of theology, is that you must remember suffering to want it erased. You must hope for relief to seek her rituals. You must be attached to your pain in some sense to want it removed. Shar's gift requires the very things it destroys. This paradox does not trouble her faithful. They see it as proof of her wisdom. She meets mortals where they are, uses their weakness to grant what they consider strength, turns their suffering into the key that unlocks freedom from suffering. And once that freedom is achieved, once memory is erased and hope is abandoned and attachment is severed, the person who wanted these things no longer exists. Someone else wears their body, speaks with their voice, moves through their life, but the suffering self is gone, erased, lost to the Lady of Loss, perhaps forever, perhaps exactly as intended. This is Shar's answer to the problem of existence. Not to fix it or improve it or find meaning in it, but to erase the parts of you that care about these questions, to hollow you out until nothing remains that can suffer, to transform you into darkness itself, pure and simple, and eternally at peace in the only way peace seems achievable. Complete absence of the self that experiences pain. Section 4. The Eternal War with Selûne. The hatred between Shar and Selûne runs deeper than mortal comprehension allows. It predates language, predates thought, predates the very concept of conflict itself. Before emotion had names, before war had purpose, these two forces opposed each other with an intensity that shaped reality's fundamental structure. Every atom in existence bears the mark of their struggle. Every moment contains echoes of their first terrible conflict, when Selûne brought the sun's fire to warm the worlds they had created together. And Shar perceived this act as the ultimate betrayal. You live in the wreckage of their war. The world around you, the societies you build, the very thoughts forming in your mind right now exist only because neither goddess could achieve total victory. Selûne created light and life and hope, spreading warmth across the void, but could not banish darkness completely. Shar spread loss and forgetfulness and despair, working to extinguish all light, but could not prevent creation from taking root and flourishing. They remain locked in eternal stalemate, each preventing the other's triumph, each ensuring the conflict continues across ages without end. The nature of their opposition goes beyond simple good versus evil. Such mortal categories cannot contain the complexity of their divine conflict. Selûne does not fight merely for goodness in any conventional sense. She fights for existence itself, for the continuation of creation, for the right of things to be rather than not be. Her light represents possibility and growth. Her hope suggests that improvement is achievable. Her love binds individuals into communities that can achieve what isolated persons cannot. She is the goddess of the moon, stars, navigation, wanderers, questers, and good lycanthropes, offering guidance to those who travel through darkness. Shar opposes all of this not from wickedness, but from what she considers deeper wisdom. She sees the suffering creation generates and judges it not worth the price paid in endless pain. She sees hope leading mortals into repeated disappointment and offers what she views as merciful release through hopelessness. She sees love creating vulnerability and provides what she considers safety through isolation. Where Selûne says existence has value despite its cost, Shar responds that non-existence offers peace that no amount of meaning can match. Their war manifests across multiple battlefields simultaneously. The cosmic realm where gods directly clash in ways mortal minds cannot fully perceive. The material plane where their servants struggle for dominance over cities, kingdoms, and entire civilizations. The individual human heart, where hope and despair take turns, controlling behavior and choices. Each battlefield reflects the same fundamental conflict, the same question asked in different ways. Should things exist, or should they return to void? Should mortals strive, or should they surrender? Should memory persist, or should it be erased? In the cosmic realm, Shar and Selûne face each other across dimensions mortals cannot perceive. Their divine essences collide in spaces where normal physics breaks down, where time flows in strange patterns or not at all, where reality itself becomes fluid and negotiable. These clashes generate ripples that wash across the material plane, manifesting as natural phenomena, magical anomalies, and unexplained events that scholars struggle to categorize. When Selune gains temporary advantage in these cosmic struggles, her light spreads further than normal. We can observe this in historical records describing periods when crops flourished beyond expectation, when diseases suddenly cured themselves without explanation, when people across entire regions woke, feeling unaccountable hope despite circumstances that should have crushed optimism. The moon shines brighter during these times. Darkness retreats to smaller spaces. The weave thrums with increased power, making magic easier to channel and more reliable in its effects. When Shar pushes back successfully, the effects reverse in troubling ways. Shadows lengthen even at noon, defying natural law. Memories become unreliable across entire regions, with communities forgetting important traditions or the reasons behind established customs. Depression spreads like plague, touching even those whose lives contain no obvious cause for despair. The shadow weave expands its reach during these periods, finding new gaps in reality where darkness can take root and grow stronger. Most mortals never recognize these shifts as divine conflict. They attribute crop success to good farming techniques or favorable weather. They blame disease on poor hygiene or bad luck. They explain widespread depression through personal failure rather than cosmic influence. Only those deeply attuned to the gods, the priests and prophets, and intensely faithful, understand what is actually happening. They recognize that they live on a battlefield where divine forces use mortal lives as pieces in a cosmic game. Neither side can definitively win. The servants of both goddesses work tirelessly to advance their patron's cause. Selune's faithful, the Selunites, walk openly in the world without hiding their allegiance. They wear silver and white, displaying moonlight symbolism proudly on their garments and holy symbols. They build temples with windows specifically designed to let moonbeams illuminate altars during night services. They preach about new beginnings, about redemption, about the possibility that tomorrow might bring change for the better. They offer healing and comfort, and the promise that suffering, while real, can lead to growth and deeper understanding. Shar's faithful, the Sharons, work in secrecy and shadow by contrast. They wear black and deep purple, colors that help them blend into darkness and avoid detection. They build temples hidden underground, concealed in caves, or disguised as other structures entirely. They whisper about endings rather than beginnings, about acceptance rather than struggle, about the peace that comes from surrendering hope instead of clinging to it. They offer forgetfulness and numbness, and the promise that suffering can be erased rather than endured or transformed. The two groups clash constantly wherever their spheres of influence overlap. Sometimes openly, in pitched battles where silver blades blessed by Selune Meet shadow-forged weapons empowered by Shar, more often subtly, through assassination and sabotage, and the slow work of undermining each other's influence in communities where both faiths have established presence. A Selunite temple burns under mysterious circumstances that investigation can never quite explain. A Sharon priest vanishes without trace. And worse, the memory of their existence is carefully erased from everyone who knew them, leaving only empty spaces in people's lives they cannot account for. Neither side shows mercy to the other when their conflict turns violent. Selunites view Sharons as corruptors who steal people's humanity through memory erasure and the destruction of hope. Sharons view Selunites as torturers who extend suffering through false promises that tomorrow will be better when evidence suggests otherwise. Both perspectives hold elements of truth. Both miss the complexity of what they oppose. Both remain convinced of their own righteousness. The war for mortal souls forms the most important battlefield in many ways. Every person who chooses hope over despair, who builds rather than destroys, who remembers rather than forgets, represents a victory for Selune in this cosmic struggle. Every person who surrenders to darkness, who erases their past, who stops trying to improve their circumstances, represents a victory for Shar. The gods fight not primarily for territory, but for allegiance, for the choices mortals make in millions of individual moments across countless lives. You participate in this war, whether you know it or realize your choices serve divine purposes. Every time you decide to keep going despite pain, you serve Selune. Every time you let go of a memory that hurts too much to carry, you serve Shar. Every hope you nurture feeds one goddess. Every attachment you sever feeds the other. Your life is their battlefield. Your choices are their weapons. Your suffering and your joy both serve as ammunition in their eternal conflict. Major conflicts throughout Faerun's history show the scale of their struggle. During the time of troubles in 1358 Dale Reckoning, when all gods walked Faerun in mortal form after being cast down by the overgod Io, Shar and Selune's conflict became visible to ordinary people in ways it normally is not. Mortals witnessed goddesses fighting with powers that reshaped landscapes despite their temporary mortality. Mountains were altered, valleys carved by divine conflict, rivers redirected by the sheer force of their battle. Entire cities caught between divine forces found their populations forced to choose sides or perish in the crossfire of a war that transcended mortal understanding. The conflict between their followers extends across the entire continent. Based on historical records, in cities like Waterdeep, Selunites and Sharons have waged what could be called shadow war for control of the city's spiritual and political direction. Such conflicts last for decades or even centuries, claiming thousands of lives over time, fought as much through political maneuvering and social influence as through direct violence. When they end, neither side typically achieves decisive victory. The cities remain divided, some districts favoring light and others embracing darkness, the compromise reflecting the cosmic stalemate between the goddesses themselves. The pattern repeats across nations and centuries with disturbing consistency. Selune's faithful build institutions meant to help the suffering. Shar's faithful infiltrate or undermine those same institutions. Light spreads into darkness. Darkness reclaims the spaces light briefly illuminated. Hope rises in communities that had lost it. Despair follows inevitably behind. Neither side gains lasting advantage because the fundamental conflict cannot be resolved through any conceivable victory. It can only perpetuate itself, generation after generation, until mortals forget there was ever anything else. Champions of both goddesses occasionally face each other in direct confrontation, and these battles become the stuff of legend. The exact details of specific champions vary across different historical periods, but the pattern remains consistent. A paladin or champion blessed by Selune, with fragments of divine power, hunts Shar's servants across Faerun. They carry weapons blessed with moonlight that burns shadow-touched flesh. They wield magic that pierces illusions and reveals hidden things. They speak prayers that strengthen hope in despairing hearts. Some serve their goddess for decades, or even centuries, when sustained by divine power. Shar's champions possess equally formidable abilities in response. They move through shadows as easily as others walk through open doors. They erase memories with practiced skill. They spread despair through their mere presence in ways that defy normal explanation. They command shadow creatures, beings born from darkness, given form and purpose. They too can serve for extended periods, kept functional not necessarily by divine blessing, but by gradual transformation into something no longer quite mortal or alive in conventional senses. When such champions face each other, reality warps around their conflict in observable ways. Light and darkness battle for dominance over the same physical space. Witnesses report time seeming to dilate or contract unpredictably during these confrontations. Those who observe these battles sometimes lose their minds trying to perceive what happens when divine powers channel through mortal vessels. The aftermath often requires decades to repair, assuming repair is even possible. Some historical battle sites remain forever changed, becoming pockets of reality where normal rules no longer fully apply. The cost of this eternal war falls heaviest on ordinary mortals who never chose to participate. You do not choose to be born onto a divine battlefield. You do not volunteer your life as ammunition for conflicts beyond your understanding or control, yet you pay the price regardless. Every community torn apart by religious conflict between these faiths, every family divided between Selunite hope and Sharon acceptance, every individual paralyzed between the desire to keep trying and the exhaustion that suggests surrender. Children grow up in this environment, learning that darkness and light are enemies, that you must choose one or the other, that neutrality is impossible or represents cowardice. They internalize this cosmic conflict, carrying it into their adult lives, perpetuating the war through their own choices and prejudices, even without direct divine intervention. The war becomes self-sustaining in this way, requiring neither constant divine attention nor priestly manipulation to continue. It lives in mortal hearts, passed down through generations like inherited trauma. Their war shapes not just individual lives, but entire civilizations over time. Societies that favor Selûne's teachings tend toward growth and expansion. They value progress, innovation, the belief that tomorrow can be better than today through effort and hope. They build monuments meant to last forever. They record histories in painstaking detail. They celebrate heroes and martyrs, keeping memory of the dead alive through story and song. They refuse to accept current limits as permanent, pushing always towards something greater. These societies eventually face their own contradictions and limitations. They overextend their resources. They make enemies through aggressive expansion. They discover that progress in one area often means regression in another. They learn that even their most impressive monuments crumble despite best efforts. They find their carefully recorded histories becoming propaganda or being forgotten entirely by later generations who no longer value them. The heroes they celebrated become embarrassments when values shift. The martyrs died for causes their descendants sometimes consider foolish or misguided. Societies favoring Shar's influence tend toward stability and isolation instead. They value tradition not for its own sake, but because change consistently brings suffering. They build modestly, expecting structures to eventually fail regardless of effort invested. They record little, understanding that records decay, and memory itself is burden rather than treasure. They do not celebrate individuals, because individual achievement inevitably fades into irrelevance. They accept limits as fundamental rather than challenges to overcome. These societies face different problems, but problems nonetheless. They stop growing when neighboring cultures do not, leaving them vulnerable. They fail to adapt when circumstances change in ways that make old patterns unsustainable. Their refusal to reach for better futures leaves them at the mercy of those who do reach. Their isolation becomes weakness when cooperation would bring strength they cannot achieve alone. Their acceptance of limits means others eventually set those limits for them through conquest or influence. No perfect answer exists between these extremes. No society has found the sustainable balance between Selûne's ambition and Shar's acceptance that allows them to thrive indefinitely. The few that come close inevitably tip toward one pole or the other as circumstances shift and pressures mount. The war allows no lasting neutrality because the fundamental questions have no neutral answers that satisfy everyone. The twin goddesses themselves seem unable or unwilling to end their conflict. They have fought so long that fighting has become their essential nature. Selune brings light because Shar spreads darkness. Shar spreads darkness because Selune brings light. Each one defines herself in opposition to the other, needing the enemy to exist before the self can be fully defined. This suggests a troubling codependence beneath their hatred. This codependence implies that perhaps neither truly wants the war to end, or perhaps neither can exist without the other to oppose. The ancient unity they shared before the conflict over creation began still binds them in ways neither acknowledges openly. The war might not be pure conflict, but something more complex, an endless debate between two aspects of reality about the fundamental question of whether existence justifies its cost in suffering, but whether the war has ultimate purpose or is simply eternal habit makes little difference to those caught in its machinery. You still must choose sides or try to navigate between them, still must decide whether to hope or surrender in your own life, still must determine whether to carry or erase your memories, still must live on a battlefield where every choice serves one divine agenda or another, whether you acknowledge this reality or not. The war shapes your world regardless of your awareness. Shar and Selune fight their ancient battle through your life, through your choices, through your suffering, and your rare moments of joy. You are their weapon and their witness and their victim all at once, participating in a conflict that began before your birth and will continue long after your death. Section 5. Shar's temples, followers, and the destruction of hope. The temples of Shar hide in plain sight. A cellar beneath a respectable merchant's home. A network of caves behind a waterfall. A forgotten crypt in an old cemetery. The upper floors of a tower where nobles think only servants dwell. These sanctuaries exist wherever darkness gathers, wherever secrets need keeping, wherever people seek escape from memory's burden. You could pass one every day without knowing, without seeing the black disc symbol concealed behind false walls or hidden under loose stones. Finding a Sharon temple requires more than searching with your eyes. It requires need. The truly desperate develop an instinct for shadows, for the places where ordinary light seems reluctant to reach. They wander streets late at night, following half-remembered directions from half-forgotten conversations. They notice doors that should not exist in certain walls. They see symbols that vanish when looked at directly, but remain visible in peripheral vision, based on accounts from those who have found these hidden sanctuaries. The Lady of Loss calls to those ready to answer, and her temples reveal themselves to seekers prepared to pay the price of entry. The architecture of these hidden spaces follows specific principles documented in descriptions from former Sharons and those who have infiltrated these locations. No windows. Natural light must never penetrate a true Sharon sanctuary. What illumination exists comes from carefully shielded candles, or in some cases, magical darkness that somehow allows sight while remaining absolutely black. The walls are typically stone, cold to the touch, absorbing sound so completely that whispers die before traveling more than a few feet. The air hangs heavy with incense, bitter and cloying, designed to cloud thought and ease the transition into altered states of consciousness. The central chamber of any Sharon temple contains the altar, a smooth block of obsidian or black marble, its surface polished to mirror darkness back at those who approach. No decorations adorn it in most cases. No offerings rest upon it, except when rituals are actively being performed. The black disc hangs above, sometimes carved directly into the wall, sometimes painted with pigments that seem to absorb light, sometimes created from pure shadow held in place by magic. The purple border surrounding the disc represents the last light before absolute darkness. The final moment before memory dissolves completely into Shar's keeping. Supplicants approach this altar with trembling steps. They have come seeking what no other god offers in quite this way. Not healing that leaves scars, not justice that requires continued engagement with the world, not reward for virtue that demands continued virtuous behavior. They seek erasure. They want pieces of themselves removed, painful memories excised, hope surgically extracted, so that the despair born from disappointed hope can finally end. They kneel before the disc, and they pray for loss, because they have learned that losing can feel like winning when you lose the right things. The priests who serve these temples come from diverse backgrounds. Some were born into Sharon families, raised from childhood in hidden enclaves to understand that darkness is not evil, but honest about reality's true nature. Others discovered the faith through personal tragedy, through losses so profound that ordinary comfort could not reach them. Still, others were recruited deliberately, identified as useful by existing Sharons, and slowly converted through careful manipulation of their circumstances and exposure to Shar's philosophy when they were most vulnerable. What they share across these different origins is transformation. Service to Shar changes everyone eventually, and this is observable in accounts from multiple sources. The constant exposure to darkness, the repeated rituals of erasure, the steady work of destroying hope in others. These things hollow out the priests themselves over time. They become living embodiments of their goddess's philosophy, empty vessels through which her will flows. Shadows wearing human shape, present in the world, but no longer truly part of it in any meaningful emotional sense. These priests do not proselytize in traditional ways. They do not stand in marketplaces promising salvation or eternal reward. They do not write theological treatises for academic debate at universities. Instead, they position themselves strategically where broken people gather. The bereaved at funerals, drowning in fresh grief. The betrayed outside divorce courts, shattered by broken trust. The ruined outside bankruptcy hearings, devastated by financial collapse. They wait and watch, and when someone shows the right kind of desperation, the particular emptiness that suggests readiness for Shar's message, they approach with carefully chosen words. Their words are selected with precision for maximum impact. They do not condemn the supplicant's pain or dismiss their suffering as weakness. They validate it completely. They agree that life has been cruel, that hope is exhausting, that memory weighs too much to carry indefinitely. They speak about relief, about peace, about the simple comfort of forgetting what cannot be changed. They describe Shar's gifts not as sacrifice, but as liberation, not as loss, but as freedom from chains most people do not even recognize as binding them. Some resist initially despite their pain. They cling to the belief that they should remember, should honor the dead through memory, should preserve their pain as tribute to what was lost. The priests do not argue when faced with this resistance. They simply wait with infinite patience. They know from long experience that pain accumulates over time, that every day adds weight to an already unbearable burden, that eventually even the most devoted griever will seek relief, and when they do, Shar's servants will be waiting with open arms. When resistance finally crumbles, when the supplicant accepts what Shar offers, the transformation begins through the rituals described earlier. The first experience of memory erasure takes only a single memory in most cases, usually the most acute pain. The relief that follows is immediate, and according to those who have experienced it, intoxicating in its completeness. For the first time in months or years, the supplicant wakes without crushing weight on their chest. They move through their day unburdened by constant reminders of loss. They discover they can smile without it feeling like betrayal of the dead, can laugh without guilt immediately following. This relief becomes addictive in a very real sense. The supplicant returns to the temple seeking more, and the priests welcome them back. Another memory erased, another burden lifted, another piece of themselves surrendered to darkness. Each ritual makes the next easier to accept. The attachment to memory weakens. The fear of forgetting fades. What seemed terrifying at first becomes comforting. What felt like diminishment reveals itself as expansion. The strange expansion that comes when you empty a vessel so completely that nothing can ever fill it or burden it again. The black disk itself holds deep symbolic meaning beyond simple representation of night. It embodies the concept of complete absence, and this symbolism is consistently emphasized in Sharon texts and teachings. Not the absence of light specifically, but the absence of everything. The void that existed before creation and will exist after creation ends. The ultimate destination toward which all things move, whether they acknowledge it or not. The peace that comes when struggling finally stops, because there is no one left to struggle. The purple border represents transition and liminality. The space between existing and not existing, between remembering and forgetting, between hoping and accepting hopelessness. Purple is the color of dusk and dawn, of moments when day and night meet without either dominating. For Sharons, this border symbolizes the journey every supplicant makes, the gradual movement from light into darkness, from defined self into undifferentiated void. Gazing upon the disk during meditation, devotees report experiencing dissolution of the boundary between self and darkness. They stop feeling like individuals separate from the shadows around them. They merge with emptiness, becoming part of it rather than distinct from it. This experience, which would terrify most people, brings profound peace to those who have accepted Shar's truth. The peace of no longer fighting against reality, the peace of surrender, the peace of finally, completely giving up the struggle to make existence meaningful. Why do people turn to Shar? The question seems simple, but the answer reveals uncomfortable truths about the nature of conscious existence. They turn to her because sometimes suffering becomes genuinely unbearable, because sometimes hope hurts more than despair when hope has been disappointed too many times, because sometimes memory is more painful than forgetting, and no amount of meaning-making can change that fact, not because they are weak or wicked or foolish, but because they are human, and human capacity for enduring pain has limits that vary from person to person. Consider the mother whose child died screaming, and she cannot stop hearing that scream years later. It echoes in quiet moments. It wakes her from nightmares. Other gods offer comfort, but cannot make her unhear what she has heard. They promise meaning in suffering, but meaning does not silence the scream. They speak of reunion in the afterlife, but she must live decades more before that reunion becomes possible. Shar offers to take the scream, to remove it entirely along with the memory of the child, because you cannot separate the pain from its context. This is a terrible choice, but for some, it becomes the only choice that offers actual relief. Consider the soldier who committed atrocities in wartime and cannot reconcile his actions with who he believes himself to be. He remembers the faces of those he killed, remembers their pleas. No amount of seeking forgiveness can erase what he did. Other gods offer redemption through service, through becoming better, but becoming better does not erase what occurred. The memories remain. The faces haunt him every night. Shar offers to take those memories, to remove the guilt by removing the context that creates guilt. Is this worse than the alternative of living in constant torment? The question has no easy answer. Consider the philosopher who sought truth and found only the absence of inherent meaning, who looked deeply into existence and saw nothing looking back. This knowledge crushes them because they cannot unknow what they know, cannot force themselves to believe comfortable lies about cosmic purpose. Shar offers to remove their capacity for caring about meaning at all. When you forget that you ever asked these questions, they stop tormenting you. Is this better or worse than living in clear-sighted despair? Again, the answer depends entirely on individual perspective. These examples reveal what draws people to darkness. Not wickedness, but exhaustion. Not evil, but desperation. Not weakness, but the terrible strength required to admit that you cannot carry your burdens any further without help of a kind most gods do not provide. Shar does not corrupt innocents who are happy and whole. She accepts the already broken, the thoroughly disillusioned, the ones who have tried everything else and found no relief from their particular suffering. She is the last resort for many, and for some, last resorts are all that remain available. The seductive nature of her promises lies in their brutal honesty. She does not lie about what she offers or what it will cost. She does not pretend that forgetting is painless or that darkness is comfortable in conventional senses. She tells you exactly what will happen if you accept her gift. You will lose memories. You will lose attachments. You will lose yourself piece by piece until nothing remains that resembles who you used to be. She tells you this plainly and clearly, and people accept anyway, because the alternative is continuing to suffer in ways they can no longer endure. What Shar truly offers is not peace in any positive sense, but absence of conflict. Not happiness, but absence of sadness. Not fulfillment, but absence of yearning. She empties rather than fills. She removes rather than adds. She destroys rather than creates. Everything she gives comes through taking away. Yet for those who have tried being filled and found themselves still empty, who have added to their lives and found themselves still lacking, who have created and watched creation crumble, perhaps emptiness begins to look appealing in ways outsiders cannot understand. What she takes in return seems obvious on the surface. Your memories, your hopes, your sense of self. But the taking goes deeper than these surface sacrifices. She takes your potential for growth because growth requires learning from past experience. She takes your capacity for deep relationship because connection requires vulnerability and continuity of memory. She takes your ability to find meaning because meaning comes from narrative, and narrative requires continuity of experience over time. She takes everything that makes you distinctly human and leaves only the mechanical functions of existence without the consciousness that makes existence personally significant. Her role in destroying hope extends beyond individual supplicants seeking her aid. Through her servants, through her shadow weave, through the very existence of her faith as an alternative to hope-based religions, she works to undermine hope wherever it appears, not violently in most cases, not through direct confrontation that would unite opposition against her, but through persistent erosion, through whispering doubts, through demonstrating again and again that hope leads to disappointment more often than fulfillment. When Selunites build an orphanage promising better futures for abandoned children, Sharons watch and wait with knowing patience. Some children will thrive in that environment. Others will not. The ones who do not. The ones who are abused by other children or fail to learn trades or discover that their promised better future is barely different from their painful past. These children become vulnerable to Shar's message. Sharons approach them carefully. Show them how hope was used to manipulate them into compliance. Demonstrate that they would have suffered less if they had never hoped at all. Some convert. Some become Sharon operatives themselves, dedicated to preventing others from being hurt by hope the way they were hurt. This systematic destruction of hope serves Shar's ultimate goal, as we can infer from her actions across millennia. She wants mortals to stop trying, stop striving, stop believing that anything can improve through effort. She wants humanity to collectively surrender, to embrace the void, to accept that existence is suffering, and the only true escape is through erasure of the self that suffers. Individual conversions matter, but the cumulative effect matters more. Each person who gives up makes giving up seem more reasonable to others. Each abandoned dream makes dreams seem more foolish. Each erased memory makes memory seem less worth preserving to those who observe the results. In modern times across Faerun, Shar's influence spreads more subtly than in ages past. Open worship remains rare and secretive in most civilized areas, but her philosophy permeates culture in ways that do not require acknowledging her name or even knowing she exists. The cultural emphasis on letting go rather than working through trauma. The suggestion that pain is pointless and should be numbed rather than processed. The growing acceptance that nothing ultimately matters and we should stop pretending otherwise. These ideas serve Shar whether those expressing them worship her or not, whether they even know who she is or not. Her temples still exist, hidden and dark, scattered across the continent. Her priests still perform rituals of erasure for those desperate enough to seek them out. Her faithful still work to undermine hope and spread comfortable numbness wherever they can. But her greatest victory in this age comes through cultural acceptance of her core message without direct conversion. That suffering is inevitable and resistance is futile. That hope is foolish given historical evidence. That memory is burden rather than treasure. That the best response to existence is surrendering rather than continuing to fight against its inherent cruelty. You live in a world where these ideas gain traction with each passing generation, where people increasingly choose disconnection over difficult relationships, where communities fracture because maintaining them requires effort that seems unrewarded, where individuals retreat into isolation because engaging with others brings pain along with any potential joy, where the suggestion that maybe existence itself is the problem, that maybe consciousness is curse rather than gift, grows increasingly acceptable in philosophical and artistic circles. This is Shar's world emerging gradually, not through conquest, but through exhaustion. Not through forced conversion, but through cultural shift toward her truth about reality. The Lady of Loss does not need temples in every city when she has already influenced the collective consciousness. She does not need priests actively converting supplicants when philosophy and art and everyday conversation spread her message more effectively than any sermon could. The question you must answer, the question every person must ultimately answer for themselves, is whether she is right. Is suffering truly inherent to existence in ways that make existence not worth its cost? Is hope genuinely futile given the evidence of history and personal experience? Is memory more burden than gift when honestly assessed? Does consciousness bring more pain than the peace of non-existence would provide? Or do we resist? Do we insist that suffering, while real and terrible, does not negate the value of existing? That hope, while often disappointed, sometimes delivers what it promises, and that makes the disappointments bearable. That memory, while heavy, connects us to ourselves across time and gives our lives continuity and narrative meaning. That consciousness, while painful, allows experiences and connections that make pain worth enduring. Shar offers her answer. She has offered it since before time began, since before the first mortal drew breath. She will offer it until after time ends, until after the last star burns out. The void waits with infinite patience. The darkness never tires. The Lady of Loss extends her hand toward every suffering mortal, promising relief through erasure, peace through surrender, freedom through forgetting everything that makes you who you are. Whether you take that hand or reject it determines not just your individual fate, but contributes to the larger question of consciousness itself. Because if enough people accept Shar's gift, if enough mortals surrender to darkness, if enough hope is destroyed, and enough memory erased, then perhaps the mistress of the night finally achieves what she has always sought, the return to primordial void, the ending of what she sees as the cosmic mistake that was creation, the peace that comes when everything stops, when consciousness itself is finally, mercifully extinguished. And in that silence, in that absolute darkness, in that perfect emptiness, perhaps she will finally be proven right. Perhaps suffering will end completely. Perhaps the war with her sister will conclude. Perhaps existence itself will be revealed as the aberration she always claimed it was from the beginning. Or perhaps that darkness, once achieved, will be lonelier and colder and more terrible than any suffering light creates. Perhaps consciousness, for all its pain, holds value that void cannot match. Perhaps memory, even painful memory, matters more than comfortable forgetting. Perhaps hope, even foolish hope that is often disappointed, serves purposes that despair cannot fulfill. The choice is yours to make. Every day, every moment, every decision about whether to remember or forget, whether to hope or surrender, Whether to engage with life or withdraw from it, you choose which goddess to serve through actions, large and small, often without realizing the cosmic significance of your choices. And your choice, combined with billions of other choices made by billions of other mortals, determines what kind of universe we collectively create and inhabit, one trending toward light or one sliding into darkness, one where consciousness persists despite suffering, or one where consciousness finally, mercifully, ends. Shar is patient beyond mortal comprehension. She can wait. She has waited since before waiting had meaning. She will wait until after waiting becomes impossible. The void that was will be again, she promises. That is her certainty. That is her threat or her promise, depending on what you choose to believe, what you choose to remember, what you choose to hope for or surrender. The darkness is always there, always waiting, always ready to take what you are willing to surrender. The Lady of Loss keeps her promises with absolute reliability. She will erase whatever you ask her to erase. She will destroy whatever hope you want destroyed. She will empty you as completely as you desire to be emptied, without judgment or hesitation. All she asks in return is everything: your past, your future, yourself, your soul, your participation in what she views as Selune's cosmic mistake, your vote, as it were, for existence over void or void over existence. Is that price too high? Or is it exactly what you have been searching for without knowing how to name it? The answer depends entirely on how much you hurt right now, how tired you are of fighting against reality's cruelty, how ready you are to simply stop struggling and surrender to the darkness that has always been waiting for you. And that answer, more than any theological argument or philosophical debate, determines whether Shar's darkness spreads or retreats in this generation and the next. She erases memories and destroys hope because she believes, perhaps correctly from a certain perspective, that memory and hope are chains binding mortals to suffering that serves no ultimate purpose. She offers what she genuinely considers mercy. What you consider it determines everything about how you live, how you die, and what meaning, if any, you find in the time between. If you found this deep exploration into the nature of Shar, the Lady of Loss, both enlightening and thought-provoking, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps me continue creating these in-depth lore discussions about the gods, the mysteries, and the hidden truths of Dungeons and Dragons. Until the next story, may you find your own balance between light and darkness, between remembering and forgetting, between hope and acceptance.